There's something happening around you right now. It's subtle, but powerful. The relationships you attract, the opportunities that slip in or vanish without explanation, the habits you can't seem to break, and the emotions that stir up out of nowhere. They're not just passing events. They are signals, echoes. They might even be reflections. But not reflections in the traditional sense. Not like light bouncing off a mirror. This reflection runs deeper, much deeper. This idea challenges the way you've likely seen the world your entire life. You've probably been taught to think of reality as something out there, a fixed stage where you play your part. The circumstances are separate. The world is neutral. Things just happen. But here's the question we're exploring today. What if the world isn't neutral? What if it's not random or separate or merely physical? What if reality, in its most mysterious form, is mirroring not your conscious wants, but the subconscious structures that are running your life beneath the surface? This is the concept of the quantum mirror, a lens that suggests the universe isn't just influenced by your thoughts or emotions. It's shaped, scene by scene, by the deepest beliefs and assumptions that live in your subconscious mind. Now, let's be clear. This is not about surface-level positivity. This isn't about repeating affirmations and expecting everything to magically align. This is about understanding how the most hidden parts of your psyche, the ones you barely notice, are consistently being reflected back to you in the form of life events, patterns, and so-called coincidences. In this video, we're going to explore the quantum, metaphysical, and psychological foundations of this concept. You'll see how modern science begins to hint at truths that ancient wisdom traditions have been teaching for centuries. We'll explore whether the world is truly objective or if it's more like a hologram, a projection of your inner world made visible. We'll examine how the subconscious mind actually dictates the quality of your experiences. You'll learn about belief feedback loops, how recurring patterns are trying to show you something, and most importantly, how to change what gets reflected back. Because once you understand how this mirror works, you stop being at the mercy of your experiences. You begin to use them as clues. You begin to shift them at the root. You begin to reclaim your role, not just as a participant in this universe, but as a co-creator whose subconscious programming writes the script for your reality. So stay with this, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And from that point on, life never looks the same again. The concept of an objective, independent reality has been the cornerstone of mainstream thought for centuries. According to this worldview, the universe exists out there, detached from perception. Matter is primary. Consciousness is secondary, maybe even irrelevant. This perspective is tidy. It's comforting. It makes you feel like you're simply navigating a fixed structure, doing your best with what you've been given. But that entire foundation begins to crack when you start asking deeper questions. Questions like, why do different people experience the same situations so differently? Why do emotions, expectations, and beliefs seem to influence outcomes in ways that can't be dismissed as coincidence? And then you encounter something that shifts the ground beneath your feet, the holographic model of reality. This idea suggests that what we perceive as physical reality might actually be a projection. Not unlike a hologram. Just as a hologram contains the entire image in each of its fragments, the universe might hold the whole in every part. But more importantly, your mind, particularly the subconscious mind, might act as the projector. This isn't just abstract philosophy. Consider the double-slit experiment in quantum physics. In it, particles behave differently depending on whether they are observed. This suggests that consciousness plays a role in shaping what we call matter. Observation influences outcome. That single fact should radically alter how we think about reality. Now extend that idea. If your attention and expectation can change the behavior of particles, then it's not a stretch to consider that your subconscious expectations, those constant, quiet assumptions, are influencing outcomes all around you. The holographic principle, echoed in quantum theory and theoretical physics, supports this. It proposes that the three-dimensional universe might actually be a projection of two-dimensional information encoded elsewhere. Think about that. The solid world may be no more substantial than a dream your mind collectively agrees is real. But unlike a dream, it has rules. And those rules are formed by your belief systems. This is where ancient metaphysical teachings begin to echo modern science. Hermetic philosophy, for example, has long taught that as within, so without. In Eastern traditions, Maya refers to the illusion of reality. In some indigenous cosmologies, the outer world is seen as a direct mirror of the inner self. So across time and culture, there's a repeating message. The world you see is not the full truth. It is a reflection, filtered through your beliefs, amplified by your emotions, and structured by your subconscious programs. Let's apply this practically. If someone holds a core subconscious belief of unworthiness, perhaps developed in childhood, they will tend to attract experiences, relationships, and even outcomes that confirm that belief. These patterns reinforce the internal story, making it seem more real, even though it originated within. Here's the twist. They're not attracting these things because they consciously want them. They're not choosing pain. Rather, their inner programming is shaping perception, focus, and decision-making in subtle, unconscious ways. The universe, functioning as a quantum mirror, reflects back the signal it's receiving. And this mirror doesn't lie. It reflects with surgical accuracy, not your public affirmations, but your private, unexamined beliefs. That's why positive thinking often fails without subconscious alignment. You can declare abundance all day long, but if your subconscious holds fear, doubt, or guilt around wealth, then that's the frequency the mirror will echo back. So is reality objective, or is it responsive? There's growing evidence to suggest that it is deeply responsive, not to fleeting wishes, but to the stable architecture of your inner world. Your beliefs are the blueprint, your emotions are the fuel, and your attention acts as the sculptor. The beauty of understanding reality this way is not just theoretical. It's practical. Once you realize you're projecting the hologram, you gain leverage. You stop chasing shadows in the external world and start working with the light source, the subconscious itself. It's not about control. It's about clarity. The universe isn't punishing or rewarding. It's simply reflecting. It's holding up a quantum mirror so you can see what's hidden. And once seen, what's hidden can be transformed. Beneath your awareness, there's a builder constantly at work. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't pause. And it never questions your instructions because it doesn't speak in words. It speaks in patterns, emotions, and repetition. This builder is your subconscious mind. It governs nearly every function of your body. But more than that, it governs your interpretation of reality. It filters every experience through a vast and ancient library of beliefs, memories, and emotional associations. You're not reacting to life itself. You're reacting to the meaning your subconscious has already assigned to it. Most people live unaware of this hidden architect. They believe their reactions are logical, their choices rational. But studies in neuroscience reveal that approximately 95% of your behavior is driven by the subconscious. That means only a tiny fraction of your life is guided by conscious thought. Your subconscious isn't just storing data. It's scripting your life. Let's look at how that happens. From the moment you're born, your brain functions at a different frequency than it will in adulthood. Children spend much of their early years in a theta brainwave state, the same state adults enter during hypnosis. This means children absorb information without analysis or resistance. Everything said, every emotional tone, every repeated message becomes a part of their internal operating system. By the time you're 7, you've downloaded the core of your programming. And this programming doesn't sit idle. It becomes the filter through which every later experience is interpreted. It influences what you notice, what you ignore, what you expect, and what you avoid. Most importantly, it influences what you attract and perpetuate. Consider someone who grew up hearing that love must be earned. That love is conditional. Their adult relationships will often reflect this exact structure. They may choose partners who withhold affection because their subconscious believes that love must be fought for, that it must be proven. So the subconscious draws in situations to fulfill the script it knows. Not because it's what you want, but because it's what you believe is true. This isn't about blame. It's about recognition. Your subconscious isn't sabotaging you. It's trying to protect you in the only way it knows, by reinforcing what it's already learned to be safe. Even if that safe is painful, familiar pain can feel safer to the subconscious than unfamiliar joy. The result? You attract patterns, not people. You recreate scenarios, not accidents. Your life becomes a loop until the subconscious programming is updated. And this loop extends to more than just relationships. In finances, a person raised in scarcity may subconsciously associate wealth with danger or loss. Even if they consciously desire success, their subconscious might sabotage opportunities, procrastinate at key moments, or generate anxiety when abundance begins to flow. Again, not because of laziness or incompetence, but because the inner architect is following a blueprint. And the blueprint was never revised. In health, subconscious beliefs about the body, aging, or even inherited illness can create a physiological environment that reinforces those beliefs. The body listens to the mind far more deeply than most realize. But here's where things begin to shift. Once you bring awareness to this hidden architect, you can begin to rewrite the plans. The first step is recognizing that your subconscious is not your enemy. It's a servant, one that never questions the task, only the input. If your subconscious learned, for example, that success makes people jealous, it will find ways to keep you small, to keep you safe. If it learned that you don't deserve love unless you're perfect, it will sabotage intimacy whenever you feel flawed. These are not random self-defeating choices. They're protective mechanisms rooted in outdated belief systems. You have to identify the beliefs before you can change the structure. And to do that, you must observe the outcomes. Start looking at the patterns in your life. Where do things feel stuck? Where do cycles keep repeating? Instead of judging the pattern, trace it. Ask what belief would have to be true for this pattern to make perfect sense. You'll often uncover statements like, "People always leave. Money is hard to keep. My needs don't matter. I'm not allowed to be seen." These are not logical truths. They are subconscious permissions, or more accurately, restrictions you didn't consciously choose. But now you can begin to challenge them. You can begin to offer your subconscious new material. The subconscious doesn't change through logic. It changes through emotion and repetition. That means affirmations, visualization, and inner dialogue can work, but only if you engage with feeling and consistency. Neuroplasticity supports this. The brain can rewire itself. Synapses that fire together wire together. When you begin to think, feel, and act from new beliefs, even if they feel unnatural at first, you begin to form new neural pathways. Over time, these become the new normal. The subconscious adopts them, and the hidden architect updates the blueprint. And when the blueprint changes, the external world begins to reflect something new. You might notice people treat you differently. Opportunities you were blind to now appear. Emotional triggers dissolve. Choices that once seemed impossible begin to feel obvious. This isn't magic. It's structure. It's how the subconscious, when aligned, reshapes the pathways of perception, decision-making, and energetic projection. You're not creating your reality from scratch every morning. You're tuning into the version of reality that aligns with your inner code. That's why two people can live in the same city, face the same market, and yet have vastly different experiences. The variable is not the city or the economy, it's the inner world they're bringing into the equation. And the most extraordinary part? This isn't limited to the few. It's accessible to anyone willing to do the work of self-awareness and reprogramming. So if you're wondering why certain things keep happening, if you feel like you're working hard but getting nowhere, if you've sensed that there's something deeper shaping your experience, that sense is correct. The hidden architect has been guiding more than you realize. But now you're beginning to see the plans. You're beginning to choose which ones to keep and which ones to change. There is a phenomenon in quantum physics that continues to baffle even the most seasoned scientists. It's called quantum entanglement, a process in which two particles become linked in such a way that the state of one instantly affects the state of the other, no matter how far apart they are. They can be separated by vast distances, yet still behave as if they're one. This isn't theoretical speculation. It's been observed, measured, and replicated. There's no known limit to the distance. The particles respond in perfect coordination, as if they share information instantaneously. Now pause for a moment. What does this mean not just in the lab but in your life? Because if the very building blocks of the universe are connected at such an intimate, instantaneous level, then everything you experience may be far more entangled with your inner world than you've been led to believe. Let's go deeper. You are not separate from the field of energy around you. Your beliefs, thoughts, and emotional states are not isolated. They are entangled with outcomes, people, and possibilities in the quantum field. And much like those particles, the match between inner and outer happens in real time. This creates what we can call a belief feedback loop. It works like this. A subconscious belief forms early on, often unnoticed. That belief emits a frequency not just metaphorically, but neurologically, emotionally, energetically. That frequency influences your choices, perceptions, and behaviors. You engage with life based on that blueprint. Life responds. Events unfold that match the belief. The result? The belief gets reinforced, becoming even more deeply embedded. You believe something, so you feel it. You feel it, so you act from it. You act from it, so you experience it. You experience it, so you believe it even more. This is the loop. And unless interrupted, it continues indefinitely. Now think about the implications of this when viewed through the lens of quantum entanglement. If you carry a core belief of rejection, you're likely to entangle yourself with situations that reflect that belief. Not because the world is cruel, but because the frequency you're holding is seeking resonance. It's not punishment, it's alignment. Here's the critical point. This entanglement doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you expect. Wanting and expecting are not the same. You may want deep love, but expect abandonment. You may want wealth, but expect loss. You may want recognition, but expect invisibility. The universe reflects not the surface-level thought, but the dominant inner signal. And it's not just the signal, it's the strength of the signal. Emotional intensity supercharges entanglement. That's why trauma can have such a lasting imprint. It anchors a belief with emotional power, which creates a stronger projection, which magnetizes more of the same. But, and this is essential, the reverse is also true. When you intentionally generate emotional resonance with a new belief, you begin to forge a new link in the field. You start to entangle with new outcomes. At first, they may appear in subtle forms. A strange coincidence, a sudden opportunity, a conversation that opens a new door. These are not accidents. They are echoes of the new signal being received by the mirror of reality. Let's take this further. There's a concept in physics known as the observer effect. It shows that the act of observation changes the outcome. But observation in this context doesn't mean just seeing. It means intention. It means expectation. So when you begin to observe life through a different lens, when you expect connection instead of isolation, possibility instead of limitation, you begin to collapse a different set of probabilities into reality. That's not wishful thinking. That's mechanics. Every possibility already exists in the quantum field. Every version of your life, every alternate outcome, is already available as a probability. Your beliefs and expectations act like a selector switch, tuning you into the version you align with. This is why some people seem to experience constant synchronicity. They're not lucky. They're entangled with a field that matches their internal state. They're broadcasting a signal of alignment, so they experience events that reinforce that signal. Others, stuck in loops of fear or scarcity, encounter repeated friction. Not because they're being tested, but because they're entangled with a timeline that reflects unresolved patterns. The feedback loop does not distinguish between positive or negative. It only responds to coherence. And coherence means internal consistency. So how do you break free from a limiting loop? First, you become aware of the loop. You observe your thoughts, not just react to them. You notice your emotional set points, your dominant stories, the language you use to describe your life. Second, you disrupt the pattern. This can be done through emotional reframing, subconscious reprogramming, or even something as simple but profound as pattern interruption. When you act in a way that contradicts the old belief even slightly, you send a new signal. That signal begins to entangle with a different strand of possibility. Third, you reinforce the new signal consistently. Repetition matters. The subconscious does not change in a single leap. It needs reinforcement. The same way it learned the original belief, it must be taught the new one, gently, steadily, over time. And fourth, you stay open. Don't chase outcomes. Let the mirror respond. Trust the field. Trust that the new entanglement is already underway, even before it shows up visibly. There's one more layer here. Your beliefs not only shape what you attract, they shape how you interpret what you attract. The same event can be seen as a disaster or a breakthrough depending on the belief system interpreting it. So the feedback loop is not just external, it's perceptual. You are constantly filtering experience through the lens of belief, which then reinforces the belief, which then shapes your interpretation of the next experience. This is why self-awareness is power. Because the moment you recognize the loop, you can rewrite it. You can untangle from timelines that no longer serve you. And you can form new entanglements, consciously chosen, intentionally reinforced, energetically aligned. So when something shows up in your life, ask not just, why is this happening? Ask, what belief is this echoing? The answer may reveal more than any external analysis ever could. Every moment you experience is holding up a mirror. It may not look like one. It might take the form of a conversation, an unexpected delay, a financial shift, or a stranger's attitude. But underneath it all, life is reflecting something deeper than surface-level interactions. It's responding to your internal blueprint with precision. The blueprint is not conscious. It's not your list of goals or intentions. It's not your vision board or your favorite motivational quote. The blueprint is subconscious. It's the underlying structure of belief, emotion, and expectation that shapes how reality appears before you. Think of it like an operating system. You don't see it directly, but everything on your screen is running through it. So how do you know what's in your internal blueprint? You look at the patterns in your external life. Patterns never lie. They are accurate reflections of dominant inner states. When the same type of challenge continues to appear, whether it's with relationships, money, authority, or health, it's not a coincidence. It's a signal. Let's say you frequently encounter people who disrespect your boundaries. You set the limits, but they ignore them. The temptation is to blame others or question your worth. But there's a deeper question to ask. What part of me expects to be ignored? That expectation may come from childhood experiences. It may be reinforced by repeated emotional cues. Over time, it becomes part of your blueprint. And the world responds not because it's punishing you, but because it's mirroring that internal script. Mirrors don't judge. They reflect. They don't create the image. They show you the image you're already carrying. This reflection is happening in motion, moment to moment. It's not limited to major events. It's embedded in how people speak to you, the choices you're drawn to, even the opportunities you notice or miss. That's why two people in the same environment can experience completely different realities. One person may feel supported, valued, and seen. Another, in the same place, may feel invisible, rejected, or excluded. The environment is the same. The mirror is different because the internal state being reflected is different. The idea here is not to blame yourself for life's challenges. The purpose is to become aware of how you're contributing to the reflection so you can influence it. Awareness is the first key. Without it, you stay locked in unconscious reaction. But with awareness, you can start to decode the mirror. Ask yourself, what emotional pattern keeps repeating in my life? Where do I feel stuck no matter what I do? What kind of people or situations do I keep attracting? What do those patterns reveal about my inner assumptions? Look for the emotion beneath the surface. If rejection is the consistent theme, the underlying belief might be, I'm not worthy of being chosen. If struggle surrounds you, the deeper imprint might be, I have to fight for everything. These beliefs may not have been consciously chosen, but once identified, they can be examined and changed. One of the clearest mirrors in motion is the emotional charge you feel toward others. Projection is a powerful tool for self-discovery. When someone's behavior triggers a strong emotional reaction, it often points to something unresolved in you. You may think you're reacting to them, But in truth, you're reacting to what they represent in your subconscious. If someone dismisses your idea and it enrages you far more than the situation warrants, pause. That response may reflect an old wound, a belief that your voice doesn't matter. The person becomes the trigger, but the wound is much older. This is not about excusing others' behavior. It's about using those moments as indicators of what still needs healing or reprogramming within yourself. Now consider how this plays out in decision-making. When you're operating from subconscious patterns, you don't always choose what serves you, you choose what feels familiar. That familiarity may be rooted in past pain. But the subconscious doesn't prioritize joy, prioritizes what it knows. So if you're used to chaos, calm might feel boring. If you're used to rejection, love might feel suspicious. And you'll find ways, consciously or not, to return to the emotional baseline you're wired for. That's the loop. And it continues until the emotional baseline is raised, until you teach your system that peace, respect, and abundance are safe, normal, and expected. How do you begin to change the reflection? First, slow down your reactions. Life moves fast, but transformation happens in pause. Before reacting, ask, what is this moment reflecting back to me? What belief does this confirm or challenge? Second, shift your attention from the surface to the root. If your income plateaued, it's not just about working harder. Ask what belief is limiting your expansion. If conflict repeats in your relationships, ask what emotion or belief is being validated through the drama. Third, practice emotional neutrality. When you stop labeling events as bad or good, you start to see them as mirrors. This doesn't mean you accept toxic behavior. It means you extract meaning from the moment before deciding your next move. Fourth, become intentional with the internal image you carry. Just as a mirror reflects your appearance, life reflects your self-concept. Begin to reinforce the idea that you are safe, worthy, capable, and supported. That becomes the image. That becomes the reflection. This is not about spiritual bypassing or pretending everything is fine. It's about refining the internal signal so the feedback loop responds differently. It's about stepping out of reaction and into authorship. One of the most empowering truths is this: you don't have to wait for life to give you a new script. You can write one. You can shift the internal story. And when you do, the external world must adapt to mirror that shift. The mirror doesn't lead. It follows. So the next time life feels chaotic, ask not what's wrong out there. Ask what it's revealing in here. That single shift in focus changes everything. Patterns lose their grip. Loops begin to weaken. Space opens for something new to emerge. And through it all, the mirror remains, faithfully reflecting back the next level of your awareness. When you look into a physical mirror, the image you see isn't permanent. Change your expression, shift your posture, adjust the lighting, and the reflection changes instantly. The mirror isn't fixed. It simply responds. The same is true for the mirror of life. Once you understand that your external experience is shaped by your internal blueprint, you gain access to a powerful truth. You can change the reflection by rewriting the script. The script isn't made up of conscious preferences. It isn't your to-do list or your goals. It's written in the language of belief, especially subconscious belief. And that language is encoded not just in thoughts, but in emotions, memory, identity, and repeated patterns. So the question becomes, how do you actually change the script? The first step is clarity. You can't change what you haven't seen. Many people try to force their life to change without ever examining the beliefs that are scripting it. They take massive action. They push. They hustle. But the inner story stays the same. And as long as the story stays the same, the mirror can only reflect a new version of the same pattern. Clarity begins by identifying the core beliefs currently running in the background. You can start by observing the areas of your life that feel constricted. Ask yourself, what recurring thought do I always return to in this area? What does this situation keep trying to teach me about myself? What would I have to believe for this pattern to make sense? Don't rush this process. Let the answers rise naturally. Sometimes they appear in language like, I always have to do it alone. Nothing ever works out for me. I can't trust anyone. I don't deserve more. These statements are not facts. They are programs. They've likely been running unchallenged for years, maybe even decades. But once exposed, they become changeable. Now comes the shift. You can't just remove an old belief. You must replace it. And not just with a new thought, but with a new internal state. The subconscious speaks in feeling. If the old belief was anchored in fear, then the new belief must be anchored in safety. If the old story was rooted in shame, the new one must be grounded in worthiness. This is where techniques like visualization, affirmation layering, and somatic anchoring become powerful tools. Visualization isn't about fantasy. It's a method of rehearsing new emotional truths. When you visualize from the point of already having something, not wanting it but being it, you begin to train your nervous system to accept a new baseline. And once your system feels safe with the new state, it becomes available in your external life. For example, instead of visualizing becoming successful, you visualize yourself already in the feeling of ease, confidence, and alignment that success represents to you. You feel it in your body. You anchor it in your breath. That emotional imprint tells your subconscious, this is now safe. This is now familiar. And what's familiar becomes what's repeated. Affirmation layering is another technique that works by gradually shifting your inner narrative. Instead of jumping to declarations your system doesn't yet believe, like, I am wealthy or I am powerful, you build a bridge. You start with phrases that feel believable and grow from there. For instance, I'm beginning to trust that change is possible. I'm learning to feel safe with abundance. Each day, I'm aligning more with my true worth. These statements bypass resistance because they don't deny your current reality. They gently expand it. And with repetition, they build new neural pathways, new lines of code in the subconscious script. But cognitive tools aren't enough on their own. You must also involve the body. The subconscious lives in the nervous system. If your body doesn't feel safe with a new belief, it won't stick. That's where somatic anchoring comes in. This means pairing a new belief with a physical state of calm. You might repeat your new affirmation while holding your hand on your heart, or while breathing slowly, or after movement. By linking the belief to a relaxed state, you train your subconscious to associate it with safety. Over time, this rewires your baseline, and the mirror reflects the update. Now, let's talk about consistency. One-off practices rarely lead to lasting change. Just as the old script was written through repetition, so must the new one be. But here's the key difference. The new script doesn't have to be written in pain. It can be written in presence, in choice, in self-compassion. When you catch an old thought pattern, don't criticize it. Recognize it as the echo of an outdated program. Pause. Replace it with your new statement. Engage with it emotionally. Speak it out loud if needed. Reinforce the shift. And then act from the new belief even before you fully believe it. Action is what grounds the new script into physical form. You don't wait to feel confident to speak your truth. You speak your truth, and confidence begins to grow. You don't wait to feel abundant to treat yourself with respect. You treat yourself with respect, and abundance begins to meet you there. These small, consistent actions send a message to your subconscious. This is who I am now. And the mirror has no choice but to reflect that identity back to you. You'll start noticing changes. A difficult person may soften unexpectedly. A new opportunity might arise out of nowhere. You'll see synchronicities increase. You'll feel a shift in your internal dialogue. All of these are signs that the script is being rewritten, and the reflection is changing with it. But the goal isn't perfection. There will be days when the old pattern resurfaces. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means another layer is asking to be released. Use it. Thank the mirror. Update the code again. This process is nonlinear. It spirals. Each repetition deepens the new alignment. Eventually, the old patterns stop showing up. Not because the world changed, but because you changed. Your expectations shifted. Your energy shifted. And the mirror followed. This is not about forcing reality to comply with your desires. It's about tuning your internal signal until the reflection naturally matches. There's no pushing, just alignment, just coherence between belief and experience. That's the art. That's the rewiring. and it's within your reach now today. The mirror is ready. The script is in your hands. Right now, there are countless versions of your life that could unfold. They're not imaginary. They're not theoretical. They are real potential outcomes, each one activated by a different combination of beliefs, choices, and emotional alignment. This isn't science fiction. This is a concept being explored across quantum theory, metaphysics, and consciousness studies, and it changes everything. You're not moving through one single predetermined timeline. You are constantly shifting through variations of reality, subtle or significant, based on the signal you're sending out. The driver of that signal? Your beliefs. Picture it like a branching tree. Every possible version of you exists along a different branch. One version of you is thriving financially. Another is stuck in scarcity. One is in a fulfilling partnership. Another is repeating the same toxic dynamic. One feels empowered, expressive, and aligned. Another is quietly struggling in fear and self-doubt. Each of these versions exists in the field of potential. They're all accessible, but you can only experience the branch that your current identity matches. This is where the concept of the belief bridge comes in. A belief bridge is the set of internal structures, thoughts, emotions, expectations that connect you from your current timeline to an alternate one. The bridge isn't built through force. It's built through alignment. That means you don't jump from fear to joy in a single leap. You shift gradually. Subtle changes in self-perception, thought pattern, and behavior create a ripple effect. And that ripple guides you onto a new path. Not by waiting for reality to change, but by embodying the new frequency now. Let's break this down. Say you feel stuck in a cycle of rejection. Deep down, you carry a belief that you're not lovable unless you prove your worth. That belief shapes your behavior. It makes you shrink, overextend, chase validation. Those actions reinforce the same timeline, repeated rejection. But now you've identified the belief. You've started rewriting the script. You're practicing new emotional states. You're speaking differently. You're choosing differently. Each of those changes is a plank on your belief bridge. At first, the outer world might not shift. The same people may still act the same way. That's because you're still walking across the bridge. But with every step you take, you become less of the old self and more of the version of you who expects love, who allows it, who receives it. Eventually, you reach the other side. Not metaphorically, energetically. You've shifted into a new timeline where different opportunities, people, and outcomes await. The reflection has updated not because time passed, but because identity shifted. This is why it's so important to hold the vision of the self you are becoming, not just as a fantasy, but as a real version that already exists in the multiverse. That version is calling to you, but it won't reach you on your current frequency. You must rise to meet it. That doesn't mean pretending. It means acting in alignment with the new version, even before external confirmation arrives. Ask yourself, how does the version of me who lives that life feel each day? What do they say no to? What boundaries do they hold? What thoughts guide their decisions? What emotions are familiar to them? Then start embodying those traits, not perfectly but consistently. The more you act from the future version of yourself, the more you collapse that version into the present. This is quantum identity work. It's not about dreaming of a better reality. It's about becoming the version of you who already lives it. Now, let's clarify one thing. You're not creating these realities. They already exist. You are selecting and aligning with them. It's not magic. It's resonance. In the same way a radio picks up different stations depending on its tuning, your consciousness tunes into different realities based on your internal frequency. The frequency is composed of belief, emotion, identity, and intention. That's why emotional regulation is essential. Fear locks you into survival timelines. Guilt ties you to self-sabotage. Resentment keeps you anchored in the past. You're not punished for these emotions, but if they dominate, they determine the branch you're walking. You shift timelines by shifting emotional dominance. That doesn't mean suppressing fear or sadness. It means integrating those emotions so they no longer define you. And when you reach neutrality, emotional calm, presence, self-trust. You become fluid, flexible, able to shift timelines without resistance. Now, some ask, how long does this take? That question comes from the old paradigm, one that believes time creates change. But in the quantum paradigm, identity creates change. Time is just the delay between signal and reflection. Sometimes it's instant, sometimes it lags. But the shift begins the moment the frequency changes. The moment you let go of the old story and step into a new one, the field begins to reorganize. You may notice subtle changes first. New insights, new clarity, new people entering your life. Then more obvious shifts. Different results, deeper alignment, situations resolving that used to feel stuck. Each of these is confirmation that you've accessed a new version of reality. Here's the most empowering part. You can return to the bridge at any time. You are never locked into one reality. The choice is always available. The signal can always be reset. It's not about being positive all the time. It's about becoming coherent. Inner and outer, thought and action, identity and emotion. When coherence is established, the bridge becomes clear. And when the bridge is clear, transition becomes inevitable. So the next time you feel stuck, remember, a different version of your life is already real. You don't need to force it into existence. You need to become the version of yourself who is already living it. Not someday. Now, one thought, one breath, one belief at a time. This is the real work of transformation. Not chasing outcomes, but shifting into timelines where the outcomes already exist. The quantum mirror will reflect whatever version of you is holding the clearest signal. Let that version be grounded, expansive, worthy, and fully present. Because when you truly shift who you are being, the world cannot help but follow.